Don't get in my way now.
Welcome to the GSTL. We are in the final match of the preliminaries. These two teams both got thrashed, as was previously said on Twitter, by LGIM, and we're going to see if one of them can make it through today.
Yeah, Fnatic more so than NS Hosa. Fnatic was actually all killed by Yonghwa, and NS Hosa on the other hand at least secured 3 points with Jakji. So right now, the only player that was able to score for NS Hosa so far is the Terran player, the former GSL champion, whereas Fnatic didn't score a single point in this GSTL.
Yeah, not a single point on the scoreboard. Even Oz being taken out in the end, just getting totally dominated by LGIM's starting player. See if they can show a little bit more strength today.
Yeah, they certainly are really eager to start today's match. They want to make up for the performance that they showed the last time, and I don't think that we will see an all-kill today. At least I don't hope so.
Yeah.
We'll have to have a couple of more games, a little bit of a longer day.
I think so. You know, and you and I both talked to the players a little bit, and it looks like the spirits of the players are looking decent. They don't look like sad or like down, like they think they're going to lose. Both teams actually not taking their loss too hard.
I couldn't resist earlier. I went to the Fnatic players and said, so guys, today, hopefully you're not going to get all killed. And all of them are like, no. So they were really happy, but at first they just looked at me and was like, no, you didn't. Well,
the kind of response from Juani was entertaining, to say the least. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how they want to plan things out today. I'm really interested to see, for example, the starting players that are coming out for these two teams and how that's going to affect how things begin here. Because I think, you know, I feel like I talked to you about this earlier. I feel like NS Hosa may try to start things off strong today with one of their Terran players.
I cheated.
You cheated?
I already know.
Don't tell me, actually.
I won't.
I want to know who starts, but don't tell me yet.
Okay.
All right, let's take a look at our team info, in fact. Check out the race distribution and, of course, the code S distribution as well.
Yeah, here we go. We have the captains with Scalp and Moon. And, of course, here also the race distribution is actually pretty good. We have no code S players for either one of those teams.
Yeah, in fact, most of them being Code B players. Only 2 Code A players for Fnatic, and NS Hosa having only 1, who is, in fact, the former champion, Jakji. So that's how things break down for these two teams. You can see Fnatic actually having a lot more points in total than NS Hosa.
And of course, NS Hosa a little bit dominated by Terrans, 3 Terrans, 2 Protoss, and 2 Zergs. But yeah, we know all about the lineup, the strongest player in the lineup, of course, being Jakji, and he's one of the players that you can definitely... I mean, last time they chose him to be the 2nd or the 3rd player, actually, so pretty early in the lineup.
Pulled him out fairly early indeed, and you know, they've shown in the past they really like to put Sculp out as well as one of their heavy hitters, but he hasn't really quite produced those results just yet that I think he's capable of, and I feel he's capable of it because the coach always makes these choices to put him out when they're in a tough spot, and if you make that choice consistent, it's like, well, there's got to be a reason for this.
Another player that we actually haven't seen the last time was Seal. I was really surprised to not see the strong Zerg player in the roster against LGIM, but we might see him today. And of course, for Fnatic, we also have a couple of really heavy hitters, as you already said. We have, of course, Oz, who is not really performing as well as he did in the past, if you just think about his performance in former GSL seasons. But of course, we have still alive on the bench. We have now with Jay, aka Lovesick, another Zerg player in the roster, who did actually not do all that well at the Code A qualifier.
Yeah.
I think he lost in the first round with a 2-0.
That's true, and something else to think about with these two teams, by the way, is they're both a little bit smaller than some other teams. So you know basically who the top players on each team are. You know you're going to see Jakji. You know you're going to see Oz, for example, and you know you're going to see Moon. So it's a little bit easier for these two teams to prepare for each other, which makes for kind of a, in some ways, more dynamic team battle because you have to think about the order of your players so much more because you know you have a limited number of players to work with. There's less players that you can choose from. For example, LGIM has so many players on their team in general, not only so many champions, but just like a bigger roster of players.
And of course, with a smaller lineup, it's also easier to prepare a couple of snipers to take down the key players of your opponent's team. And talking about the teams, here we have NS Hosa, Jakji leading the charge here. To the right, we have Tacita, of course.
And you notice that they have 5 players there. That means each one of these players will have to be defeated if the team is to lose today.
And looking at, I didn't catch all of the faces, but we don't have Seal actually on the bench. He's not here.
Yeah, he looks to be missing, which is quite interesting. The team just seems to be thinning out, actually. You know, they had such a great lineup of Protosses. Many of the Protosses just kind of bounced off in different directions.
Their players actually just start disappearing.
Yeah, they really do, man. It's like they're ghosts or something. Well, here's a breakup of their official roster.
Starting things with the Terran players today.
Yep, Sculpt, Jokji, and Salvation are the 3 Terrans for NS Hosa.
And here we have the Protoss players with Tacita and Brave. So only 5 players and not a single Zerg on the bench today.
Yeah, Seal and Freaky, the other 2 players on the roster officially, but do not make appearances today. A lot of debate going on about what Freaky's role really is on the team right now.
Yeah, the thing is that Freaky and Seal, they actually carried the team the last season. Of course, always in addition to Jokji, that's given, but still, not having them on the bench at all is a little bit weird here to me.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. We'll see what Tasser wants to pull out today. I'm really excited to see him potentially play because I think he's got really strong late game, but he never shows it, so that makes him a dangerous weapon.
To be completely honest with you, that's not really an intimidating bench what you see there.
Yeah, it looks a bit weak.
Yeah, only 4 players sitting on the bench, 5 in total, so they have just the minimum amount of players that they need for the team match today, so that makes them very, very predictable, and Fnatic will be quite happy about that. Fnatic's lineup is not the biggest one either, as Wolf already pointed out earlier, but here we have them.
Yeah, a lot more players in total, though.
Yal, Jay.
Yeah, you can see Fnatic's new coach as well coming in here, as well as just Jay looking strong, a new player for this season, as you mentioned, not able to qualify for Code A, but still, he's a pretty heavy hitter, Kwani very confident in his abilities.
And today is the last chance for both of these teams, guys. This is the last day of the preliminaries, so whoever wins today will advance together with the LGIM, and who loses will be out of the GSTL.
They, you know, technically speaking, it's like they never got in, considering this is the preliminaries, but see how they do. Then we're going to take a look, of course, at their players broken down by race, starting with Zergs, as Moon is the captain. And you can see their entire official roster stack up here.
Here we go, our Zerg players for the team. It's Moon, we have Departure, Byal, and Jay, former OGS Lovesick.
And here are Alive, Rain, and Nama.
It is still not the face of Nama. It is still Harsteam.
But here's Night End, of course, Oz, and Ares Protoss players.
The Angel Voice.
Yeah, Angel Voice indeed. Obviously, Night End and Nama are not currently residing in Korea, but if they did decide to come because they're officially listed on the roster, they could play. And there's Kwani, the mastermind behind it all.
We have to talk to Fnatic. We have to tell them to send Gom a new picture of Nama, that they made a mistake, that it's actually Harsteam on the picture.
Yeah.
And Nama must be so annoyed, you know, he's watching the GSTL and he knows, like, yeah, I can come to Korea, I can go there in a month or 2 and play in the GSTL, and every single time he's actually looking at Harsteam. Harsteam's sitting right next to him, like laughing the entire time.
I bet,
man, I'm so much more handsome than you, that's why they picked my face and not yours.
Nama comes to Korea and the referees don't let him play. They're like, you're not Nama, you're an imposter. I've seen your picture. He's like, no, it's a mistake. I promise. I really am Nama.
Sure, yeah. Whatever you say.
Well, that bench looking a little bit more full than the NS Hosa bench. Just so many more players and so many more heavy hitters as well, I would say.
Yeah, and we can have a quick look at our starting players. Wolf didn't want to be spoiled, but I'm pretty sure you didn't expect this guy.
No, I don't think so.
Salvation starting things off for NS Hosa today.
Yeah, a whopping 1 loss, 0 wins record so far.
Yeah, he lost against First last time. He was actually the second player when NS Hosa had to face Incredible Miracle. Brave was the first player for the team, but First took him down, and then Salvation also fell victim to the strong Protoss player.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a player who has a lot of potential. He just hasn't shown it yet. Is a strong starting choice, though, because, as we mentioned before, and we say this quite often with starting players, is starting player is a player you can prepare for, but if you don't have a lot of games to look at, like you don't with Salvation, then it's kind of hard to figure out what type of build you may face.
You will definitely recognize the player for Fnatic, though.
Yeah, I think so. I see the race in the lobby, and I think I know who it's going to be, man. And he may have his race selected in the lobby, but his real race is the 5th race. It's Moon here.
Exactly. We have the former Warcraft 3 player. So Zerg versus Terran. Moon against Salvation is our first game today.
Yeah, this guy has improved so much since he started switching into StarCraft 2. He's playing for We Made Fox. still playing Warcraft 3. We made Bucks disbands, joins Fnatic, has been looking better and better every time we see him. And he's such an older player. He's got so much experience, but he's still so damn fast, man. When you watch this guy play, you might get a headache.
I nearly got a headache at the Code qualifier. I was actually sitting behind Lucira, and every single thing. Did you see the way he moves his fingers?
Yeah, man. He's crazy.
He's getting a run up with every finger that he moves to a key, and the keys are actually looking at his finger and like, no, don't hit me.
Yeah, they are so scared.
He has a very unique way of hitting the keyboard. I don't know if you guys ever saw a video. I actually recorded one, but for some reason the upload didn't work. I might try it later again.
Oh, yeah,
it's really funny.
I think there is one video of Lucira's hands out there. I think you can search for it. There's actually videos of Moon's hands as well. These guys with fast hands, fast skills.
And the map today is going to be Abyssal City. That's map number 1. And this is actually a map where we might see Mutalisk again. We talked about this a little bit when we saw the map for the first time, and so far we didn't really have this matchup on Abyssal City just yet. But now we have a Zerg versus Terran, and as well as against Protoss, you could use Mutalisk on this map. There's a lot of high ground and low grounds that you can use to your advantage with a good, strong Air Force. So let's see if Moon is going to resort to this strategy or if he's playing a different style. The match is loading as we speak. The GSTL, ladies and gentlemen. NS Hosa versus Fnatic, Moon versus Salvation. Game number 1 coming up here at the GSTL, casted by Calvin Wolf. The match is live, starting to the left side of the map of Abyssal City. In red we have the Terran player for NS Hosa. It is
NS Hosa, Salvation!
And see if he can start things off here on our underwater map.
He's up against a pretty strong Zerg here.
Tough task to play against this guy.
Starting to the right side in blue, we have the former Warcraft 3 player, the 5th race. We have Fnatic.
Fnatic Lady Call, Moon!
Moon, just such a great player. His decision making is quite unparalleled, but also his micro decisions can often be so good because he's got so much experience with the game that's so micro driven.
A couple of Fnatic fans here at the studio, and yeah, you're so right about Moon. He was actually one of the players that delivered a lot of points when Fnatic had this show match, this team match against EG that they won in the end. He was not able to beat Idra. He was actually beaten in the ZVZ, and then Rain sealed the deal with defeating the US Zerg player. But Ro, right now we actually have a pause here. What happened? The caster apparently paused the game, and not one of the players. I'm not quite sure if anything happened here. But from the looks of it, looking at the... Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I mean, in the past we sometimes had the... what happened is that one of the players wasn't able to move his mouse or keyboard, and they had to wave at the camera, and then the caster, they paused the game. But this is not really the case here, because we can currently see that they built the entire time, so we have 250 minerals for Moon right now, but he's just waiting for the minerals so that he can build his hatch.
I'm looking at the APM, and the average APM is about 200 for both players, so obviously they didn't have a keyboard issue. I think, if I had to guess, I would say there's probably some sort of problem with the Korean production, for example, or something like that required them to have a pause.
Seems to be the right map as well. It's a new map, so there shouldn't be too many different versions of the map either. Yeah, at this point, we don't really know what's going on here. I'm pretty sure that we are going to be informed very soon. But yeah, talking a little bit about the matchup on this map. We haven't seen too much about the map just yet. The Zelnaga Watchtowers in the middle, of course, really important. They are very close to each other. You pointed out the last time that the Zelnaga Watchtower are just outside of the range of each other, so you can actually see if the second tower is occupied, if you yourself have vision of one.
Yeah. That's very true. There's a few maps like that recently, and that's kind of important to
Drop
note.
play is pretty strong here. That's actually something that especially the Protoss players don't like about Abyssal City.
That's true, and the fourth base is a little bit far away.
Yeah.
It's a little bit uncomfortable to take. The bases themselves are not too far away from each other, but distance-wise from the main base, for example, the fourth is pretty hard to take for the Zerg player. Can be attacked easily by dropships. You got to make sure you spread your creep really well early on.
And as a Terran player, the fourth will probably mostly be taken with a Planetary Fortress. because it sounds, just from the looks of the minimap, it looks a little bit risky to actually take the fourth with an orbital, because as soon as you have a little bit of a run by going on, the units will take ages until they can actually be there and help you out.
When you're a Zerg player, you have units coming out of all of your hatcheries. All of your hatcheries are production facilities, but as a Terran, when you want to send units from your main base, you have to send them all the way from your production facilities if you want to send reinforcements. And Moon's hotkeys were incorrectly set up, so he's going to get a warning most likely. And
Fnatic getting a warning here, and Moon, as soon as he set his hotkeys, then we can start things off again.
Well, yeah, the Zerglings are extremely mobile on this map. That's why we see oftentimes Ling, Muta could be, you know, a lot of people are thinking, okay, Ling, Muta is going to be popular on this map. You need that mobility of the speedlings going around on the map. Infestors can be used, of course, but early on a map of this size, it's kind of hard to make them work. You have to walk across the map. You have to be very careful with them, because if you get caught, there's a long distance you have to retreat.
It's a little bit weird to me that this happens occasionally, that we actually have problems with the hotkeys in the first game. I can see why that would happen in the third game or in the fourth game, because the player doesn't have that much time to actually prepare. But in the first game, I mean, always you set up your gear and you play one game, so you start with the hotkeys. And this is something that occurred very early on, so it's not like we have a late game situation where Moon just realized that a couple of his hotkeys don't work, but it's really in the first 3 minutes of the match. So one would think that Moon would have played a test match to actually judge if his hotkeys are correct, but for some reason he apparently didn't. So now Fnatic receives a warning. We are back to business though. The hatch has been planted for Moon, double drone behind that, and let's see how those two players open up and go in the early game.
Just to second your point, it is really weird that this happens so often, as it does. By the way, okay, he actually just made an extra SCV. I was like, is he going to try to cut his orbital to get a faster command? So that was really weird. But everything totally normal. It's just one rack's expanding here. Dropping the command center before second depot on a map this size, you can always get away with that. Marine comes out to check for overlords once tonight. He's scouting information as the Marine, SCV comes to see the hatchery timing.
One thing that you guys can be sure of is that Moon and, of course, Salvation trained very, very hard on this map in this matchup. That's always the case with the first game, and of course with Fnatic being a little bit embarrassed by LGIM in the last GSTL match, Fnatic will just have put a lot of effort into training here.
Yeah. It's so crucial to save face when you lose with an all kill.
Yeah.
It's such a bad feeling for the entire team's morale, and for sponsors even. Everybody's upset about that kind of thing.
You know, it's one thing to lose against a team of the caliber of LGIM. That's nothing to be ashamed of. LGIM, as we mentioned before, has a lot of champions in their roster, a lot of very strong players. But being all killed, that is something that you never want to happen. So that's definitely something that they want to make up for. And let's see how far Moon can bring them after in this team match in general.
That's really something to note as well. As we talked about how pulling Moon out is a great known player, but what does that mean exactly? It means Moon has to do well here because he's such a critical part of Fnatic's roster. If he loses to Salvation, who's kind of one of the weaker links, and Ennis Hosa, then things can start to spiral out of control, because you need Moon later on for some of the better players, like Oz, for example.
I'm pretty interested in who's going to be the player that's going to jibe Chakchi, because there's definitely one player in the Fnatic roster that is designed to take down the Terran player.
Yeah, and that's something we may be able to see very shortly. Lair comes down here at 5:30.
Very, very fast their tech.
Yeah.
Let's see if Moon takes gas number 3 and number 4 as well. That would already indicate that he's going for some kind of Mutalisk play. So far we don't have Evolution Chambers.
This is a bit odd. He has not gotten Zergling speed yet either, so he's got that extra gas floating right now, 136, and there's
the gas.
Yeah.
Definitely a Muta build that he's using here right now. If we would go for Infestors, then we would see at least one Evolution Chamber. And he's actually playing a little bit risky here, if you think about it. He can delay the Evolution Chamber a little bit, but if there's a Banshee actually coming towards his main base, he won't have any... he won't have Spore Crawlers, but he will have the Overseers, of course, because his lair is so much faster. As you already pointed out, he's even skipping speed.
Yeah, he just now starts speed. The eBay block here is actually very annoying since he didn't target the SCV, he targeted the eBay instead. It got about 300 hit points off, so this actually significantly delays Moon's third right now. A great eBay block by Salvation. If you can catch the drone, if you see the drone specifically, you can always just drop this down. It doesn't cost that much, it builds so quickly. And the Spire, of course, has been started now.
As expected, the Spire immediately going down here. 10 Zerglings just to make sure that those Hellions are not doing too much damage and don't get too cheeky. Don't try to sneak into the main base or the natural. And at the same time we have Cloak. We have Cloak and we have the Banshee. But with the Mutalisks now being built very soon, I don't think it's going to be a big problem for Moon here. He has a very early tech, a very early Spire as well, and with an Overseer in addition to the air units, he will be completely fine against Banshee play.
He will. And actually Salvation is not getting Cloak. He's skipping that completely just to put a little bit of pressure on.
Oh, he cancelled it actually.
Yeah. And that's a pretty cool reaction by him. The Hellions actually sneak by because there's no link speed to trap them, and they can do a lot of damage here. Most importantly though, he is going to see the Spire.
Exactly, he sees the Spire, and now the drone's trying to trap the Hellions, but he's actually botching his mic a little bit. Now he's back into a corner, and finally the Hellions are dying. Killing a couple of Harvesters, 9 in total actually.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse for Moon, that's for sure. And actually, he's finally cleaned up here, but the Hellions are continuing at the natural. And in total now, he's down to 42 drones. Close call, there's several of those drones on the low hit points. One more volley could have killed more, and actually he did get a few more Jared.
Yeah,
the last
he killed 4 additional ones, and now 14 in total have been killed. Of course, the turrets, the missile turrets are already being built in as a reaction to the Spire that has been seen already. But yeah, you are right, the Hellions able to sneak in because speed was not done just yet, so even though they were on creep, Lynx could not catch up with the Hellions. Yeah. Big problem for Moon.
A huge problem. Now he no longer has control of the Watchtowers. The Banshee's moving around the map, just trying to catch any Lynx he can find. He still hasn't taken that third base either. And the turrets being up in time is so crucial because he was making those 2 barracks. He made a reactor on his first barracks, so he had like 4 Marines out. And now when the Mutas pop, he's going to have a lot more than that. But he wouldn't have Stim, of course, either. So the turrets being there is so critical on a map like this where the Mutas can bounce between the bases fairly easily.
On the other hand, the Mutalisks give Moon now a sense of security. He's very secure right now. He can react against the Banshee play. He won't be able to do a lot of damage because of the missile turrets, as already pointed out. But he will be able to take his third base. That's something that will happen very, very soon. But he needs to take down this Banshee.
Yeah, and he very carefully put that drone in there. Almost got taken out by the Banshee. Since just 1 Muta, that's all he needs to take out the Banshee. Very safe here. Even
but
the rest
not
of the
in time, Wolf. One Banshee will not. One Mutalist will not be enough to take it in time.
Yeah, he just barely gets it. You're actually absolutely right. He could have, if he did not send the rest of those Mutas over there, killed the hatchery. Now, Baneling Nest is coming down here just very safely. Burrow is on the way, and this is something Moon is known for, burrowing his Banelings.
And on this map, it's actually really effective. If you think about how the map works, all those choke points that we have.
So many ramps, and ramps are such a scary place. That's where the Marines clump up. And you know that if you have a ramp, that's where the Marines have to walk through.
What Moon is going to try right now is to delay his opponent's third base to make sure that he can't move out too fast. Actually taking down one of the SCVs here and delays the command center a little bit. And what you can already see is that Moon is really determined to make this work, to get more and more Mutalisks getting a huge force here. And Burrow will also enable him to just borrow a couple of units at the potential third bases of his opponent. So just borrowing them, sending an overload there as well to spread creep, that would be so important. The Link is actually already in position.
Yeah, I bet he'll burrow that as soon as Burrow is done. That's probably the plan here. Link does not spot the drop, however, that is going around the south. There is an overlord in position that will likely see the metabag's normal trajectory. And as soon as he sees that, it's so far out in the middle of the map, the Mutas can find and kill it.
Now the drop has been spotted. Nice, snipes the medevac, the first one, and he has to wonder already, where's the second medevac?
Yeah, and I think he is sitting his Mutas back, but he turns them around again, so I don't think he's actually seen it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He didn't really spot it, or did he? He sends the Zerglings at least into his main base.
And that should help him defend this with the Queen there as well. I think he'll be okay, he's not going to lose too much. Very carefully controlling his Mutas though. Takes out the turret. Yeah,
snipes one of the turrets, and this gives him a bit of an edge here, but he cannot take that second turret like this. He actually loses a Mutalist to that.
Yeah, that's... So he was worried about the drop in his main, which he does deflect, but there's just so many different things you have to be aware of as a Zerg player. You got to defend the drop and protect your Mutas, don't fly them into turrets. Now he's going to deny this push that's coming across the map, but he can't be done with Mutas alone. He's going to lose several here. Oh wow, 6! Oh my god.
He didn't expect those units to be there, and then the Stim took down so many Mutalisks, and now he's in trouble.
And now, yeah, he can't pick off the tanks. His Mutalisk count is too low.
And in his main base, we have the drop now going strong, so suddenly those Banelings have to actually move back, and there is no Baneling speed. The third is dying, and Salvation brings himself into a magnificent position. He still has a huge bank. He's in the lead in overall supply. He's taken his third as well. Moon could not delay it for too long. So everything's going the Terran player's way now.
Yeah, losing those Mutos is huge. He can no longer... he's getting +2. It really is quite obvious that Moon is trying to make Mutos a main part of his composition to pick off Medivacs, pick off tanks. He loses another one. Oh, in fact, 2 will likely fall. He wants to bait them into the Banelings, but it's just not going to work.
He doesn't have speed. Speed is still being researched. And look how many Mutos actually died to this. And Moon is just losing his entire army here. He is down in supply against the Terran player. He is 2 bases against 3.
Yeah, this is starting to look really bad, but the SCVs are very vulnerable here. Does lose several.
Yeah, moves away and 12 SCVs have been killed, but in total still the better economy for NS Hosta Salvation. Moon has a big problem here. I don't know what this drone is going to do, but, well...
I don't know either, man. I guess he's gonna die.
The drone couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah, I won't work for Moon.
I'd rather commit suicide.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to pick off these tanks, you know. Imagine if he had 3 times this many Mutos, that tank would have definitely died, but he just doesn't. Baneling speed is not quite done, and here comes another attack.
The thing is, the loss of the Mutalisk is actually something that Moon did not expect. He didn't actually take a huge risk. He was just trying to send his Mutalisks back to his 3rd base, and he never knew that this army was actually in between his Mutalisks and the 3rd. So suddenly, when the Mutalisks flew over the Marines, all that Salvation had to do was to stim, whereas Moon was just suddenly realizing, hey, I'm being attacked? Where exactly? Jumps up and sees that half of his Mutalisks are already gone.
Yeah. This is, I mean, that was one part. The other part was losing, for example, to a turret, one of his Mutas.
Yeah.
Then in the next fight, he tried to bait the Marines into the Banelings and lost a lot more. And a scan here reveals Banelings. Salvation is on top of this. He knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
He's not losing anything carelessly here.
He knows that he has an advantage, and he is playing it by the book right now. He wants to make sure that this is something that he can take, that he's not making any major mistakes. Loses a couple of Marines here, but he's already sieged up in his tank. The Mutalisks come in. No chance against those Marines, but wait a second. The Banelings actually take the Marines down, and now the Mutalisks have free reign over the tanks, take down every single one of them.
Yeah, this is exactly what Moon needs to get back into this game. Defeating this entire army, holds his 3rd base this time. Now he's going to pull the Mutas away, and he is going to lose his base to the south.
That was so important actually for Moon here. Those Mutalisks alone don't stand a chance against Marines with Stim and those upgrades, but the Banelings are able to take down the Marines, and then suddenly there are only tanks left. Moon takes them out with those Mutalisks, and suddenly the Zerg player is back to business.
Yeah. Does lose the hatchery down to the south, barely not able to defend it. And Salvation, though, has his 4th base, so it's a 4-base Terran against a 3-base Zerg. Great position to be in. He does have the lead right now, and his upgrades are starting to get pretty strong. He is getting +3 right now. So Moon, even though he got himself back into this game, is still behind.
Yeah, he is still a little bit behind of his opponent, and he's taking his 4th base right now, but things are looking much better now than they did just a few seconds ago.
Much better. The first Thor is on the way, and this is going to allow him to fight against these Mutas a lot more carefully.
The army, the Harvest is supplied 58 to 61 at this point. Pretty even. Moon could use a couple of additional drones, and he's killing them. Losing once again Mutalisks. He needs to be a bit more careful with his Muta control.
He really does. He needs to be super careful with these.
He's trying to circle his opponent's army to pick off a couple of siege tanks or medivacs.
Yep. He picks off one of the medevacs here. He's going to pick off another Marine, being very cautious with his Mutas at times, but other times not. You know, it's kind of ironic.
And Salvation is doing exactly what he needs to do. The Thor is here, and therefore we now have suddenly something that he can do against the clustered Mutalisks. It will be so much more difficult for Moon to actually circle around the army and picking something off. And oh wow! Every single worker dies. That was brutal. Losing 15 harvesters here.
That's really important, because now the harvester count is 54 to 40. Moon takes harvester lead. He's got 7 drones on the way. And as a Terran, you don't have that larva mechanic. You can't reproduce your workers as quickly. Even with mules, some of the stability and some of the bank building that the NS Hosta player Salvation had is no longer there. He is continuing to try to use this drop, but with the Mutas back at home, it's going to get cleaned up. But this next push is possibly the nail in the coffin. Moon has to hold this, and he has to hold it well.
Both of them are just trying to stabilize again. They're trying to get a good economy, and at the same time not being too vulnerable against their opponent's army. And at this point in time, Salvation is just pushing out. He knows that he needs to do some damage here. He wants to make it happen. He wants to force Moon into submission, and now the Zerg is transitioning into infestation pit. He wants to get the hive, and here comes another attack. Yes, he's magic boxing the Thor,
and he doesn't. He targets the planetary, but he doesn't kill it. He does not kill the planetary, so a lot of Banelings lost there. And Moon now finds himself in a terrible position. His Baneling count now down to 18. He just makes 16 more, but I mean, this push, with the amount of siege tanks he's got here, is going to be incredibly difficult to hold. 2-2 is about to finish, and he really needs it.
He really does, but those Banelings are in trouble because now all of those siege tanks are already sieged up. And the Marines stimming here a little bit too early, but at the same time, there's just nothing. There's no angle for Moon. He just doesn't have anything that he
more
can
mutas. Oh, this is such an uncomfortable position for Moon. He's trying to figure out how to attack here. The base is gone, and if he tries, if he tries to counterattack the planetary, for example, you know, he can't really fight that cost efficiently.
120 army supply against 60 at this point in time, so Moon is really in dire straits. He's trying to go for a counter-attack, but Salvation is already on his way back. Moon is starting to commit. Nice micro, kicking all those Banelings into the next sentry, and right now there's just too much damage done by Salvation. The Banelings, they just detonate against the tanks, and a lot of splash damage done to the Banelings before they actually hit as well, so suddenly those Marines are able to take down the Mutalisks.
Yeah, and Keller, Salvation is still on 4 bases. Moon is now on 2. Trying to remake a hatchery. Marines attempt to die. They will be shut down initially by these Mutas, but the second wave comes in. Moon cannot hold the hatchery, does not cancel, and I think this may be game.
It certainly looks like it. Salvation is on the move right now, and he will take down this base. Can Moon hold somehow? It certainly doesn't look like it. There are not enough Banelings. There's actually not a single one, and with only a couple of Zerglings, he won't be able to defend against this army.
And Salvation, man, he does not hesitate to stim. He has stimmed his Marines a ton here, almost all of them in the red, but it just doesn't matter, like you said, with no Banelings on the map. Who cares? He's taking out the Banelings as they morph. The Mutalisk count dropping, the supply count now down to 72, and I think Moon pulling his drones here is going to have to GG as they will evaporate in seconds.
There it is. GG, and Moon loses game number 1. Salvation with the first win for his team. Well played. NS Hosa is up 1-0 against Fnatic.
Yeah. And Moon, he needed to be the strong starting player for his team, but he just was not. Salvation outplaying him, and Moon is so known for his control, and when he does actually watch his Mutas, when he's looking at him and controlling him, some of the things he does, some of the Marines and medevacs he picks off is incredible, but if he's not watching, or like you said earlier, he just wants to send his Mutas home to defend potential drops, and he happens to fly over a bunch of Marines, I mean, is that even a mistake? Yeah, it's a mistake in one way, but how can you know those Marines are there? You just can't.
It was really well played by Salvation too, on the other hand. He saw his opportunities and he took them. On the other hand, the first attack that he launched at the 3rd base of Moon, it failed a little bit, although Marines died to Banelings and then the siege tanks were killed by Moon. But Moon, he was close of getting back into the game, and it looked for a little bit like he could start a comeback, but in the end, the small advantage that Elevation still had, even after losing this army to the top right, he was still able to carry that into the late game. The Planetary, as you pointed out, never really died to the Banelings, yeah. And then the Mutalisks were able to... Yeah, they shut down the Thor, but in the end, too many Mutalisks already died or were damaged, and he didn't have any additional units to follow this up. So yeah, Moon down, and Fnatic once again in a position where they have to come back into a match.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, Moon losing here, like, he's the captain, right? He's leading the charge. He's the player, the most experienced. He's the oldest player on the roster, and arguably the most famous as well. I mean, I don't even know if that's arguable. I think that's just true. And losing to Salvation, who's someone whose record is now 1-1, he was just 0-1, it's an uncomfortable feeling. Who do you send out next?
Well, we'll find out right now if they send out another Zerg player. We have to the bottom right Jay, to the top left there's Bjall.
I would not be surprised to see Jay here, actually.
Rain, on the other hand, also sitting on the edge of the booth at the top right. Who is it going to be? Fnatic has to choose the next player, and it is going to be Jay. We have former OGS Lovesick, another Zerg player, up against the Terran opponent, up against Salvation.
And even though he did meet a Zerg player already, Jay is someone that Juani has told us both, you know, time and time again, he's looking really promising. He was really motivated when he moved the house. He's been improving a lot. And, you know, he's one of the many leftovers from OGS that are kind of floating around right now. And OGS was a team of strong players, and he has a lot of practice experience from there. But Fnatic seems to be a team he's really gelling with right now.
And before we start our second game, of course, we'll have a short 5-minute break before we head into the match between Jay and his opponent, Salvation. Can Fnatic actually come back and tie the series up, or will Salvation take down another Zerg player and put a second point onto the scoreboard for his team? We'll find out in 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, and then we are back with the GSTL within his Hosa up against Fnatic.
What she wants, and then she leaves.